Brighton have shocked Manchester City yet again, this time by beating them by 2-1, and in this video we're going to be breaking down how they did it. We're going to be taking a look at the tactics involved that helped Brighton expose Pep Guardiola's defensive structure and ultimately get themselves the win. Brighton only had 37% possession, but they had more shots on target and they also had a higher XG, meaning that they were arguably the more dangerous side. But why was this? What Brighton did so well in this game was essentially utilise Manchester City's aggressive attacking positioning against them. To do that, they managed to really pick off City when they were really pressing forwards and really take advantage of the space that was left in between the back four. When City are looking to build, they utilise Aït-Nouri and Matheus Nunes in high aggressive wide positions. This has knock-on effects for both of their Manchester City wingers and allowing them to link up with the midfielders, creating overloads just outside the Brighton penalty area. However, if they were able to recover possession and create a transitional moment, the trade-off for that high aggressive positioning by those Manchester City fullbacks is the fact that you have a wide area to have to cover. It means that the area between the Manchester City defensive players is a little bit greater that you would normally associate with some high level teams, the likes of an Arsenal or a Liverpool, and it's these areas that Brighton were looking to exploit. This is compounded by the fact that Reinders and Bernardo Silva are not really defensive minded players, which means when a transitional moment happens they're unable to really stop it, leaving Rodri almost on an island to try and prevent the Brighton transition and the Brighton counter-attack. This also then leads to the likes of Minter, Welbeck, Mitoma and Gomez looking to really penetrate that Manchester City back line and really create those transitional moments on turnover. The difference in spacing between Kusanov and Stones was also a major problem. It allowed for the likes of Welbeck to get in between those two rather than be that tight, cohesive defensive unit that we associate with a really good defensive Manchester City display. To combat this, Man City looked to play an offensive, a really aggressive high line, looking to play almost an offside trap to catch these Brighton players unawares, and meaning that they're able to regain possession through those offsides. The problem with this is that the runs from Brighton were so good, but the space that Manchester City left and the difference in spacing between the defenders was far too great. This meant that Brighton were able to exploit it more often than not. And this is a really good illustration of what I'm talking about. It really showcases how Brighton managed to turn such a defensive situation into a really positive counter-attacking action. But there are a couple of things we really need to notice if we're going to understand this to a bit more of a deeper level. The first thing we need to notice is this. The centre-back for Manchester City in Kusanov, look at how deep he is into that Brighton half. Look at where Rodri is in conjunction with the rest of the Manchester City players. Brighton are condensing the pitch really well and almost encouraging Manchester City on, and this allows for Brighton to create that counter-attacking space on the other side. But also what you've got is really good aggression from these Brighton players. The ball gets played over to the wide area and then it comes to the really good defensive play of Minter. Not only is he a really fast, high-working, high-paced winger, he's also got that defensive attribute that allows for Brighton to really tuck in that right-back in Veltman, and it means that Brighton are a little bit more defensively solid. This is a duel between Minter and Aït-Nouri, which Minter ends up winning. The turnover has happened, and in this, what you've then got are Brighton players sprinting forwards, utilising the momentum, but also utilising the space beyond to create that counter-attack. And now look at what you've got. You've got one City player, two City player, three City players, and that is your City defensive line right there. They are looking to transition as quickly as possible, Brighton. The play goes through into the centre of the pitch towards Welbeck, and then it's about whether Welbeck can find that great run from Mitoma, that diagonal out to in run, and it's such a good run, it's such a good pass, and it carves through this Manchester City defensive line. Let's go back one more time, and let's take a look at that City line because it's really important. Look at how high they are. This is the offside trap that we were mentioning, how they don't want to run back towards their own goal, but it gets bypassed. And if it wasn't for an absolutely fantastic James Trafford save, City would have conceded a huge goal, but this really did lay the foundations for the way that Brighton were going to get something out of this game. 60th minute rolls around and Brighton are 1-0 down, so change needs to happen, and the change that Fabian Herzl made is really interesting. When we take a look at the centre of the park, we see Hinshelwood, Belabor, Gomez and Welbeck. Welbeck isn't exactly the fastest of players, but you can really play off him. Gomez had a decent game, but he needed to be switched due to his lack of energy. And then you have a look at Hinshelwood and Belabor. While they have good defensive tendencies, they needed to be altered to give that little bit boost of energy, and that's exactly what Fabian Herzl did. He essentially altered the centre of the pitch because that was the dynamic where it would be won and lost, and this is what happened. Milner and Ayari came into the middle of the park, and that allowed for better progression through the lines, but it also allowed for a bit more energy thanks to Ayari. Gruder came in to really hold the ball up and link with Ruter, who started to make some really good runs in between that lane that we spoke about between Kusanov and Stones. It was from that point that you had good passing from those Brighton midfielders, and you had good movement from those Brighton forwards, and all of a sudden you've got a bit more penetration, you've got a bit more movement, and all of a sudden that midfield dynamic starts to shift. The bit more energy really compounds against Rodri. Reinders and Silva struggled to really find that defensive balance that City require, especially in the middle of the park, and all of a sudden that space in beyond starts to get opened up. Kusanov and Stones are running towards their own goal. You've got good through balls, good runs off the ball, and before you know it, Brighton start to come back. And it's from one of those transitional moments that are able to convert it into a goal, which ended up being the winner after getting that penalty. But here, it's really important to notice what's happening with Manchester City here. You've got 1, 2, 3. That's 3 of your back 4. So let's just align that right here. This is the other member of your back 4. So that is more or less okay. But look how open Manchester City are. You have one defensive midfielder here in Rodri. Where are the rest? You've got one midfielder here and you've got another one up here. It's just simply too open, especially when you have 1, 2, 3 and 4. You have 4 Brighton players essentially up against 3 Manchester City defenders. It's nowhere near good enough, and this is how they're capitalised. The ball gets won back due to a good duel that's won against Rico Lewis, and then they're away. They're firing forwards. The ball gets played into Ruter, who holds it up brilliantly. It's then about whether he's able to bring others into play. Can he bring those runners into play? He absolutely can. It goes to Matoma, who moves infield, and it's about exposing that space. You've got Gruder right here waiting for that pass. He is in acres of space. Again, isolating the space between those Manchester City defenders. We mentioned it earlier, and it is really into play right here. You've also got a movement on the far side as well. There is so much space to exploit here. It goes towards Gruder, who takes a good touch and drives towards the penalty area. It's then about whether he's able to take his moment, whether he's able to find a good avenue to be able to go forwards and take that shot. He manages to sit both Manchester City defender and goalkeeper and fire it into the goal through a brilliant little piece of skill. The composure here is absolutely fantastic, but so was the tactical display and willingness to take that space and beyond. It was fantastic from Brighton and Fabian Herzl, and they thoroughly deserved the victory. It was a brilliant display. But of course, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. What did you make of Brighton, and what did you make of Manchester City? I'd love to hear from you, so please do get involved. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.